Hi everyone, welcome to another session from Law and Language from Dharmapeetam. So we had been discussing the difference between primary auxiliary verbs and modal auxiliary verbs, and in that particular segment we are presently dealing with how the primary auxiliary verbs are basically used in different tense forms, whereas modal auxiliary verbs are not. In that we have actually elaborately seen how be forms are used in continuous tense forms, or have forms are used in the perfect tense forms, or both have and be forms have been used in perfect continuous tense forms. And in the previous session we have actually gone through how do forms are used to create the V1 and V2 forms of the verb as well, because do forms are primarily used in the simple tense forms. And as I said in that particular session, when we use a be form or a have form to create a tense form, we can definitely see the be forms and have forms in the sentence. Be forms are visible as is, are in present tense, or was, were in past tense. Has, have are the have forms visible in present tense, and had is the visible form of have in past tense. But when it comes to do forms, specifically we cannot see that separately because it gets integrated with the main verb. When we add do forms like do or does or did, we get the V1 and V2 forms of the main verbs, right? So keep that particular point in the mind, only then we can understand how do forms are used in the simple tense forms. So among the simple tense forms, the first one is a simple present tense. Simple present tense. The structure of a simple present tense is subject plus V1 or V1 plus SES IES. Subject plus V1 or V1 with SES or IES at the end of it. We know V1 means do plus base form of the verb. V1 with SES IES means does plus base form of the verb. So here in simple present tense, the verb may end with an S, ES or IES, or may not. This difference is basically because if the subject is singular, we have to use the S, ES, IES added form. The boy plays. And if the subject is plural, we need to use the V1 form, means the do plus base verb form, they play. So when we write the structure of a simple present tense, we have two different types of verbs as an option given there, V1 or V1 with SES or IES. We know V1 means do form with base form of the verb. When we add do with the base form of the verb, we get the V1 form. When we add does with the base form of the verb, we get verb plus SES or IES. Plays, eats, drinks, goes, right? Flies. So these verbs are created by adding does to the base form of those verbs. So as such, the sentence structure in simple present tense is subject plus V1 or V1 with SES or IES. Right? Now, simple past tense. Simple past tense, again here we use the main verb in the V2 form in simple past tense. So here subject plus V2. V2 means past tense form of the verb. Past tense form of the verb is created by adding did to the base form of the verb. Here, as we are adding did, there is no singular plural difference when it comes to simple past tense for main verbs, right? He played, they played. He is a singular subject. V2 form of a play is played, they played. They is a plural subject, but again past tense form of a play is played. So when we use the V2 form of main verbs, there won't be any difference based on the number of the subject. There can be an issue when we use be form as the main verb, right? He is my friend, simple present tense. He was my friend. He was my friend. Here, was is used as a main verb, but was is used because he is used as a subject in the sentence, right? But when we use a plural subject over there, like they, can we say they was my friend? No, because in be forms, in V2, we have a different word where as a past tense form of are and where are used for plural subjects. So we have to say they were my friends. They were my friends. They were my friends. Right? So if we use a be form as a main verb, there is definitely a singular plural difference in past tense. But when we use a main verb, there won't be any difference based on the number of the subject in a simple past tense. So the structure of simple past tense is very simple, subject plus V2. Now we have simple future tense. Simple future tense, as it is a future tense, immediately after subject we have to use a will or shall. Will or shall. Right? So subject plus will or shall plus base form of the verb. We know there is no do form added in this particular form of the simple tense, because will or shall, they are modal auxiliaries, and after a modal auxiliary we cannot use any other forms of the verb but only the base form of the verb, right? So we do not add do or does here, but we use a base form. He will play. He is a subject, will play is a main verb. They will play, because between they, the subject, and play, the main verb, there lies the modal auxiliary will or shall, right? So there is no number of the subject based difference in the verb form when it comes to simple future tense. So the sentence structure of a simple future tense is subject plus will or shall plus base form of the main verb, right? So that is how we use do forms in the simple tense forms, right? So now we have seen how we use the primary auxiliary verbs in different tense forms. Do we ever come across a situation where modal auxiliary is being used in the tense form other than will or shall? There are no situations. Again, even if we use will, except a simple future tense, we have to use be forms in the future continuous tense. We have to use have forms in the future perfect tense. We have to use have and be, have forms and be forms in future perfect continuous tense, right? So that's what we consider as a difference here. Primary auxiliaries are used in the tense forms, whereas modal auxiliaries are not, right? So this particular series of how primary auxiliary verbs are used in the tense forms is very important, because this is one theoretical part that we need to remember when we have to construct a sentence, either to speak to someone or to write something in English, speaking also in English only. We have to construct sentences. Most often we come across one particular problem. If you have to speak something or write something, the one major issue that we come across is nothing else but we are not able to construct the sentence properly. Sentence construction is a problem. Sentence construction becomes a problem basically because we get confused with the tense forms. So if we have to completely construct a sentence based on a tense form, we need to know how different tenses are used. What are the situations where we use one or other particular type of a tense form, or why one particular form is used and one particular form is not used. So usage of tenses also is a major area that we need to cover. There is one more topic that we need to deal with in the difference between primary auxiliaries and modal auxiliaries. In the next session, we will clear that particular part, and after that, we will come back to tenses, like what are the major usages of tenses, and what are the different words that we have to use with different tense forms, or what are the clues that we can find in the sentences by which we can understand which tense form is used in that. Once we complete the learning aspect of the usage of tenses as well, I will guide you through a particular set of activity kind of things so that you can practice yourself. Remember one thing, learning a language is a skill, and a skill cannot be by hearted. We have to practice it, we have to take some effort, put ourselves into that, practice it, and only then we can learn a language. Right? So I'll give you the guidelines regarding that. Hope that will be helpful for you.